All right, guys, welcome back to the class, and we are getting started with week number 2. Here, basically, we are trying to talk about the Selenium, Selenium setup, right? And before that, in week number 1, we tried to cover Java classes. Java classes are very important concept that you must be looking at. And last week, Ben tried to reach out to me. He was trying to figure out some problems, and I think the solution that I gave him kind of worked out for him. There is one other thing that he was trying to do, which we can try to figure out today. The Selenium and HTML layouts, we can easily cover it up in an hour, but I really want to make sure that you understand the classes concept very well. So Ben, yeah, so he just sent me this test set. Let's try to work with this, and let's see if it can, if we can understand the problem first and then find a solution with it, okay? So let's go and say all right, let's not do a new Java project. I'll simply try to get this guy in the same location where my workspace is. So show in System Explorer. That's Java class 2. I'll simply, okay, there are some of the classes. Yeah, let me do this. I'll create a new project and then copy these guys here. So new Java project, Java class 3. And I'm going to simply, okay, I think this is a package. So I'll copy this package straight up here. Or maybe I'll create a package called, new package called test class, test_class. Okay. And inside that, I'm gonna put them through. Show in System Explorer, test class. Okay. Good. So I have them here, and let's refresh. Good. All right. So let's look at this small problem, and then we'll see how to go about it. So there are some classes here. One is called class.java. You should not keep the name class.java. Java will not behave properly. Let's give it as refactor. What is happening with Madhu? She's getting dropped off. Anyway, I'll just go and say refactor rename. I'll say CLAZZ class.java. Okay. And always do a refactor rename. By doing that, in whichever places this has been referenced, everywhere you will be able to rename just from one single option. In this class, there is a variable which is classroom name. This variable needs to be set. So we are setting the value with set classroom name and get classroom name. All right, that's the simple class here. Then there is another class called registration class. In the registration class, what you're trying to do here, as far as I understand, is he is trying to add 10 students to this class. Okay, it is an array. In this array, he wants to simply add students, something exactly similar to what we did yesterday, in the last class. So you have an add student method. You have a get student list method, and you are basically setting the school name maybe here. All right. And then you also have a get classroom name and set classroom name and get student count. Okay. All right, get student count. And that's pretty much over here is happening. You have a student class here. You have get student value, set student value. I know this is not the right thing to say. You should say set student name. Name. There's something called as a value. It should be specific. All right. So that's that. And then obviously it will fail because you're supposed to set a student name. Anywhere else? Okay. So, name. Good. Okay. So let's try to understand what we are trying to do. We have a class. We have a registration. In the registration, we are trying to, basically, you can say this is a class in which we are trying to add students. Ben, do you want to really come on audio and explain, because the names are a little bit confusing to me. Yeah, if you just kind of explain what you're trying to do. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do pretty much is there's a classroom, and in that classroom there'll be like a registration in that classroom on the table, and in that registration there'll be 10 students assigned into that registration, and it would also assign a teacher's name, and the teacher then can, based on the students, would be able to mark an X or an O for the student and say whether that student is present or absent. So X will mean present and O will mean absent, and they can do this using kind of like entries from the keyboard, so using a scanner to kind of like input the values through the console, and then through that way that when they add the X or the O, it then assigns that kind of value, the count, the amount of students that have attended. It will send that value back to the array and then provide you a count, a total amount of how many people are present and how many people are absent.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm just trying to understand, in that case, why do you even need the class, right? Because is this being used anywhere?
Not necessarily. I think the class
This
is
is
just,
not, yeah, exactly. You haven't used this. So
I'm
this
just
is
using it to
used,
define the
yeah,
name. Yeah.
yeah. It's not needed, because in the registration itself, you are just saying Trinity School registration. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
register where
Yeah.
you are trying to add students, and then you're trying to mark whether the student is pass or, I mean, there or not there. That's it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
this guy is not even needed, actually. Correct? So I'm just going
Correct.
to
Yeah.
remove this. Let's just take out things which are not needed. Good. So basically, the point is that there is a register, all right? In the register, you're trying to add the students,
Yeah.
and then you just want to mark if the student is present and not present.
Yes.
That's the whole story.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So now that we see the registration class, in this class, we have methods like registration, set registration, get student list, add student list, get classroom name, set classroom name, and get student count. Perfectly fine. Now, over here, I'm creating the object of class registration. All right. I mean, registration. Let's give it a proper name. This name is not right. I'll give the name as Trinity or class 1 register, class 1 register. So let's give a name here, refactor, rename. class 1 register. Okay, class 1 register, and just say Trinity School class 1. Class 1. That's it. That's the name of my register. Good. Here I'm creating multiple students, right? I'm creating a Richard and setting the value of Richard to Richard. I'm going to create other guys as well. So let's give you names. All right. So I'll give Richard, and then who else do you have? You have Jack. You have Jamie. You have Darren. You have David. Good. So let's say Jack. Let's say Jamie. Let's say Darren. Let's say David. All right. Not needed, gone. All right. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. You have taken them out. You have 5 of these guys here. All of them are here, perfectly fine. Now, what do? You have to create. Now you have, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, see, this is wrong. You have created the registration class in which you need to add the students. So if you need to add the student to the same register, why are you creating one more object of registration? It's not needed. All you do is you have to use this guy because you have already got it here. So, or maybe, make it look better by just set it here. Yeah, you have got the students first. All right. And now you want to put them into the register. Correct. And if that's the case, then just say registration or registration classroom. Yeah, this is what we should be doing, right? So I can do one thing, that is I will take this down, set registration. Yeah, we'll take this down totally. Okay, and this is the guy, add student. Right, yeah. Now in the set race, in this registration object, I'm going to add my students. Whichever students I have created, I will be adding them. 5 of them, right? So I have Jack. I have Jamie. I have Darren. I have David. Everybody, did you understand why did I remove the other object? Because you see, he created an object earlier over here for class 1 registration, and that scope of the object was just in that section, right? So that was not the right approach, because whatever the object you create for the registration, you will use the same object to add the students. You will use the same object to add the student. As simple as that, right? So there is no need for you to create this object over and over again, because as every time you create an object, it is creating its own world, right? So there is no point in creating multiple objects when your requirement is to make it happen under same object. There is no need to create multiple objects. So I added all my students under Trinity School class 1, perfectly fine. Then I'm looping around, all right? Then I'm looping around the student list. Perfect. When I'm looping around the student list, for each and every student, I'm hitting the scan item, or I'm creating a scanner object. Scanner object will let me provide the 1 minute. Scanner object will let me provide or let the user provide an option to enter either X or O, all right, to mark the student as present or absent. Okay, so I'm creating the object of scanner and I'm printing out press X for present or press 0 for absent. This is what you will be getting in the console. Okay, string status scan next line. This will let me know what did the user really pick. So user can say X or not. If it is X, then the student must be marked as present. So if that's the case, then I must be creating some kind of a option in my register class to make that student act as a present, right? How do I do that? Let's see. This is my registration class. In the registration class, I am getting all my students here. All right, fine. How can I mark each and every student as a present or absent? That's the challenge. So if I am scanning, so I will get the name of the student. Actually, it is easier to do it with a other collection called as hash maps. But with this, let me think. I have to somehow mark the student as a present. So one thing I can do is create an array. Okay. This is a student object, that's fine. Let me create an array. Private string. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, this is a solution. It will work out, but I'm not happy with the solution because there are multiple better ways to do it. But with whatever you have learned so far, this is the best I can think of. So string array, and let's name it as status. Okay, and equals new string of 10. I'm making it 10 because at any given class there are 10 people here. Now, if it is 10, that's great. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I am entering the data inside this status array. So how can I do it? I can create a method, public void add or set status, and here I want to take two parameters, string name and boolean if present, yeah, two different data types. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a similar loop. Okay, similar loop. And here, this is not the student list.length, but this is a status.length. All right. And then if this equals to null, if status.x equals to null, then I say status x equals to the name of the student, name plus I want to make it as if present. So basically this Boolean value is getting attached to the string value and becoming a string, all right? And then I will break it out. So set status will do that for me, okay? And okay, so let's see something. It's a Boolean, right? Yeah, perfect. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and like I can do one thing. I can actually do something better than this. Wait a minute. I'll say I'll use something like a string check present equals I'm saying if present equal to true, then send back present. Yeah, else absent. Okay, now it means that whatever the value it comes over here, depending on that value, if it is set to true, then you pass this value to check present. If it is not, then pass this value to check present. So it's a one-liner if-else statement. It's called ternary operator. I have spoken about that already. And this information goes in here. Okay. Now with this, let's see how to use that. So set status will do that. And then I might need to perform a get status, right? So meaning just a simple loop. It's exactly something like this. Get status. So this is string array get status, right? And I do say that please send me back the status. Good. This will send back to the status, and then I should be able to loop around and figure it out what's going on. Good. That's my plan. How to work it out? Simple. I say X or 0. If it is X, then if status dot equals or equals ignore case. You can hit a small x or a big X, doesn't matter. If this is equals to X, then you want to call the method class1 register dot set status and the name goes in as whatever the name is. So name of the student. What is the name of the student? The name of the student is class 1 register dot get student.
So Savik,
Yeah.
you know, above the system out print, ln, ideally, what I was trying to do is print out the name first, and then it will say press X.
Okay,
For
I'll do that.
present.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll
Okay.
do that. So this is set status string boolean. Okay. Okay. String dot get student name. Right. So for this particular student, you know what? Actually, you're right. Let's do this. So I'll do a say Control X, and I will say press so let's say sys out. Okay, string student name equals this. All right, that's number one. And number two, I go and say sys out. Um, because there are errors at the bottom. That's why it does not let me do it. What the? Why it is not writing this for me? There is no other errors. No, there are no other errors. That's YSO. Seriously? Anyways, let's not waste time. Okay, so here I go and say, I want to print out the student name. Student name will be printed. Okay, once it is printed, or you know what, in the same line, press X for present or 0 for absent, and here add the student name. Just like that. Okay, that should be good. Okay. Scan the next line. If it is X, then say it as true. Else, say it as false. False. They are absent. And in case if the user hits, sorry, let me say else if, not else. It should be else if. You want to make sure they hit O, right? Else if status equals O, right? Then make it false. Else, if they are hitting something else, then you must handle it accordingly. So you should either say that you can do one thing.
Could you use the switch here?
No. You can do
No?
one thing. You can use something called as, yeah, you can just do one thing. If I just do a continue, if I do a continue here, it will just go to the next line. And I have to test this. I have to see whether it is actually working the way it is supposed to. Basically, the continue should take me back to the next line. Or now what I want to do is, if you're hitting a wrong number, I want the user to again be prompted to enter the value for the same student. So if that's the case, then I can say, yeah, okay, I have a plan. Let's see, I equals I minus 1. Let's see, we will test this. First, let me test the first thing and then we'll see. This is what you are setting, you're making the student pass or present or absent. Once you're done with that, you want to actually run through the list of presents and absence. So you go and say I less than class 1 register.
So what's continue gonna do?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Hold on.
Okay, cheers.
I plus plus. Okay. And once that is done, dot length. Dot length. Okay, that's done. And once that is done, all you want to do is you just want to print out who is present, who is not present. So this would be straightforward. So this is out. Okay. And you go and say class 1 register dot register dot get status, right? And it is an index. So I just want to go I dot. No, I don't have to. It will anyway print the I. Yeah, this should print me the values because I'm passing the value in a string. So yeah, that should give me the values. Good stuff. Let me test it. All right. I'll put a breakpoint here. Whatever I have written, probably it is a little bit confusing. Don't worry, we will run through it and we will see how it is. So debug as Java application. Okay, so I have added all the students inside this registration class. How do you know that? You can see class 1 registration. Inside the class 1 registration, you can see there is a list of students. If you open this guy, you can see I have added 5 students here. If you open each and every object, you will see that students are there. David, this one is null. What happened? Why everybody is null? What did I do? Oh, did I do something wrong? I used to registered. David was registered. Why not others? Something wrong, right? So add student is a method. You're adding a student.list.length, all right? If it is null, then you're adding and then breaking out.
Sorry, I think it's saying Richard. If you just scroll down where you were before.
Sorry, where?
Where you were just before this. Can you just scroll down? Yeah. No. See on the top, where it says student, David is for new student. Richard dot set student name. It says Richard dot set student name. Is it correct?
I'm not seeing that.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was on line 21.
Yeah. Not only that, for everyone, I did the same. Yeah, you're right. That's the problem. Darren. Correct? Because I created the students, but I have just one guy there. So obviously, yeah, perfect. Thank you. So let's move on. So I should have everyone now in the register, right? All right, student, I have Richard, I have Jack, Jamie, Darren, David. Everybody is here. Perfect. Now, once I have them here, we will try to add them. We have added them to the register. Now we are trying to make them present or absent. Good stuff. Let's move on. Scanner. Okay. It prints out this for Richard. Scan the next line. Correct. And here I can mark it as X. You see, it's blue in color, meaning it is accepting the input from me, hit enter. It goes to the next line. Let me debug. Going inside it. And now I'm going to set this value inside the other method, set status method, all right? So it's in here, put a breakpoint, play, that brings me here now. And then I go through the same logic ideally. If it is true, then it is present and it will simply mark that value. So basically it says Richard present. That's my value, correct? So perfectly fine. And I break out of it. So that's that. And then it will not work here. And then it'll keep on doing the same thing for all of it, all of them. I put a breakpoint right this place. And let's go and hit again. So it is waiting for me. I go and say, oh, enter. Okay. I don't want to do anything. All right. Let's go. It's waiting for me. I'll make them as X. I'll make them as X. I'll make them as O. Okay. Something happened here. What is that? Null pointer exception. Why is that? And number 36. Student name. Scanner name.
Is it because of the no? So the no exception. So you haven't did the try and the catch.
No. It is saying is null. Oh yeah, that last time we did the same thing, right? Yeah, you're right about that. Correct. So you must be putting that inside a try-catch block, right? No, actually, you know what? The student list that we are getting, we should be handling it separately. Get student list, right? In this list, we should have removed everything that is having null. Or maybe, yeah, I mean, there are two ways to do it. Remove everything whichever is having null and send only the value which is correct, or else just handle it in a way that, yeah, you know what? Actually, you're right. In this situation, I don't have anything else to do. I will simply so the point is I can create a try-catch block here. That is not a problem. Try-catch. So I should keep the whole thing inside it, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Yeah, let's do that, you know. Let's do that. I'll put this whole part inside try-catch block. Okay. Exception. I'll just say null pointer exception. If I hit a null pointer exception, then just ignore it. Then just ignore it. I'm not doing anything here. Just ignore it. Okay. So that's how it will go through all of them. And then exactly the same thing. I'll do it for this one also, because for this one also, it will fail because only 5 of them are marked as present or absent. So for rest 10 of them, it is not there. So it will also be a failure. I'll again do the same thing for this as well. Okay. And control. All right. Sorry. E and That's it. Nothing else. Okay. I think that is pretty much all right. And let's just try to run it through in the play mode. And then I will try to test this guy also. We'll see what to do. Let's run. Okay. All right. I'll go and say absent. Jack. I'll go and say X. All right, Jimmy. I'll go and say X. I'll go and say O. I'll go and say X. Enter. All right. Absent, present, present, absent, present. We got all of them. And for others, yeah, it is just printing out null for others. Why
couldn't we do a system print out, system out, and then add a value to the system out, so the no exception takes.
I'm just wondering why it is even printing null, because Okay. I know what you're saying. Okay, yeah, it is null because there is a null value. In this case, I don't even need to have a try catch block. There is a difference between this line over here and this line over here. You see, this line is also getting null, but when you're null, I'm trying to access the method called getStudentName. A null object cannot try to access a method, which is why the null pointer exception was throwing. And that is the reason why I added a try catch block. But in this case, I'm not really calling any method. Okay, I'm just trying to access that value inside that particular index. So meaning that it is not really calling any method. It is just trying to access each and every index. And when it found null, it is just bluntly printing the null. I can do something just to make sure. Yeah, just a simple solution, but it will work. So I'll just say if this is, all right, I'll do like this. I'll do string status equals, if this is not null, if this is not equals to null, then get the actual value. Then get the actual value, which is this guy, right? Else continue, meaning it will not even try to print it. Continue, all right? And will this work? No, it will not, because it needs yeah, it will not work. It will not work in a ternary operator, but it will work in a if-else condition. Hold on.
Okay.
So if this is this,
I was going to say, what if you created a variable and assigned the null value to the variable, so it prints out whatever's in that variable?
It will print the null value. Then I don't want to print the value. I don't want to print the null value at all. You understand me?
Yeah, but what if you created a variable that equal to something like empty space?
Yeah.
A string, and then you assign that null value to that string of empty space that equaled empty space.
It will be empty space, but still it will be printing empty spaces, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Okay, I understand.
Continue. Yeah, this is perfect, right? So meaning, if there is a value, then print it, else continue. I don't even need a try catch block for this. because here a null pointer object is not trying to access any method. So that's that. All right, let's go and test it again. X O O X O X. Perfect. All right, now final stuff. I want to make sure that if I hit something beyond X and O, my system should accept it and should handle it accordingly. So my logic is this: if you're not pressing X or O, it will set the current value of I to I minus 1, meaning if you are in, let me explain this. Meaning if you are in the loop, you're in the loop, right? Okay, you're in this loop, right? In this loop, your I is starting with 0. Okay, for the first instance, everything is fine. So for Richard, everything is fine. Okay, and then the teacher is marking as something else. It is he or she is hitting maybe a different character. When in the second instance, second iteration of the loop, if they are marking it as something else, I want that loop to just go back to one single level, the previous level, so that it will again ask for the same student one more time. That's my motive. So meaning you are in I0. So this was Richard. This was Richard. Okay. And then the next one is David, for example. And in that situation, it is still I equals to 1, right? And then if you are hitting a different character, I want it to go back to I equals to 1 again, instead of going to I equals to 2, so that this David will be again shown to the user and they will be asked to mark it present or absent. That's my motive. Let's see how that goes. So let's do a debug, all right? Put a breakpoint right here. Debug. Okay, so it is right here now. Let's go and say U. Enter. It is coming to the else. Now I, okay, I is 0. I is not, okay, so I don't need to do, okay, perfect. This is what I wanted to check. I don't need to do this. If I just say continue, it must work it from there. Hold on, let's test it. All right, so X, I'll do D, enter. It comes back to the previous section. I is 1. Now I want the I to be, yeah, continue will make this guy I++. So in that case, this logic was fine. Restart. Let's try this again. Okay, so now, 1 minute. Okay. Here I go U, enter, continue, it says, I is equals to -1, that's perfect. When it goes to continue, it will be increased to 0. I'm hoping so. Let's see. I is, yeah, I is 0, right? So for Richard, it should still again say, press 0 for Richard, correct? Press 0 for Richard. Now you're stuck in a loop. Until unless you give the right value, you will not be allowed to go to the next guy, correct? Let's go and say again, T, Richard, all right? I'll go and say O, and now it is saying Jack, perfect? I go and say X, and now it says Jamie. And if I say P, it's saying Jamie again. If I say O, it gives me Darren. If I give X, it gives me David. If I give X, it gives me the list. Perfect solution. Do you see that?
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Okay. Everybody else, is this understandable?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sorry, so you know the scanner you had it.
Yeah.
Never used it before. What does that do?
It is basically letting you, the user from the console to enter a value.
Okay.
At runtime, you're stopping your program at runtime and you're just letting a user accept a value.
Okay.
Right?
Thanks.
Okay. Fola, what about you? Did you get that?
Yeah. That was clear. Thanks.
Okay. Rita, Vaishali, okay, all good. Anusha, how's it? Do you understand that? Madhu, how is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now that is how you handle this kind of situations. All right. Debug, make it slow. Try to take one step at a time, and then you figure out the solution. Yeah. I will upload the project. I will upload this in the Slack, so you can download that and use it. All right.
This is
Yeah, so we
assignments, right?
Sorry, two people together.
Oops. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go on. If you want to say something?
sorry, I was just trying to say, if possible, every line of code, if we could be writing some kind of what they are doing, just to indent it, say this line, this is what he's doing, so that when one is doing his personal study, he could be able to get his run around it, probably.
It'll be too much of an hassle for me to write every single detail against the code.
No, not
The pointer. I think the pointer is the best way to do that, to debug.
Yeah, the debug is the right way to do it. What exactly you want to write actually?
No, that's fine. I will go through it when you upload it. That's fine.
I just want to write that I'm creating student objects, creating students with student class, creating registration object, creating registration object. Okay. Adding students to the register. Yep. And then what? And then I say looping through the student list, looping to the student list, getting student name, each student name, all right, and scanning for user input, scanning for user input, checking or marking for present absent, marking for present absent. Okay, what else? And lastly, looping through absent marking list. I think that's pretty much. Is that okay?
That's good. That's good.
Very good. So that is that I wanted to cover up. Now, the next thing. Okay.
You sent that zip folder for the last week in the Slack, right? How can I import that to my grids to see?
Oh, it's very simple. So you go to September. Okay, so I gave you the zip folder, right? So just download. Extract all. Do it wherever you want to. Okay, once it is done, and what you do is then you go back to Eclipse, right? Eclipse, in this Eclipse, I already have the class 2. So let me actually delete this. Delete this. And then I'm showing you how to import it. So you just, the right way to import is this, file, import, say general, say project, existing project into workspace. Next, look at the location. So which was in the downloads, Java class 2, select folder and say finish. And that's how you got it. See? Clear?
Yeah, got it. I checked in Google, it was not the from directory, it was browse the other option is then and down. That I was using and was not able to get it. Now,
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and Google all the time, things are not that straightforward. So, no problem. Okay, so now that we understood this, what do we have? We have the introduction to Selenium, DevTools, and HTML layout. So let's go here, class 7. What is Java class? We did all of it. What is Selenium? And oh yeah, let's do that. All right. So Selenium. Okay, I think I spoke about all this methods and everything, scopes. Okay. This is not the one. The next class 6. Right. What is Selenium? How does Selenium work? What is a jar? Installing Selenium jar, and that's pretty much about it. Okay. Okay. So I'll talk about them. Just give me say 5 minutes. I will quickly talk about that. And this is a today's session will be not that lengthy. I can let you guys go early because I'll just finish it off and then I'll quickly walk you through the dev tools. From next week, things will be a little bit more time consuming because we will be talking more on Java parts. So week 3, I will enable by end of the day, and then you will learn many more things. Okay, just give me 5 minutes, guys. I'll come back and then I'll just cover up this section of Selenium. All right, just 5 minutes. Thank you. All right. So now that we understand this, let's try to look for Selenium, right? What is Selenium? There are 3 different flavors of Selenium, not versions, flavors. Number 1 is Selenium IDE. When Selenium came into the world, it came as a Firefox plugin. All right. Using that, you can just perform some record and play options. So basically, it was letting you record some of the steps that you're performing, and then it will simply play it. So there was not really anything advanced stuff you can do with it. Okay, it was just a child's play, and obviously, to make people understand what automation can do, you can definitely try with Selenium IDE, but that's the end of it. You cannot really make anything sustainable, maintainable with IDE. It's a simple plugin which can you do step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The same steps gets recorded in the memory, and then you can play them and keep on doing the same step over and over again. That's it. That's the record and play. Then people understood that they need to have something more than what IDE was offering. So they came up with Selenium Web Driver, which is the one that we are trying to learn here. What is WebDriver? WebDriver is basically a library which is developed by the Selenium team. This ThoughtWorks. I think now it is completely an open source tool. I think there's a different company who's working on it. I didn't really bother to check on that. But the point is that the WebDriver is basically a library. So when I say it is a library, I don't remember. I don't know if I have told you this, but library is basically a collection of multiple jar files. Jar files. What is jar? Jar means Java archive, right? Multiple jar files, and each and every jar file, and jar files are made of multiple class files. I think I told you this earlier. Class files, right? Class 1, class 2, class 3. Class means all the Java files get compiled to become a class file. Correct? Class files, okay? So that is basically actually a library. So you can download this library from selenium.dev website, and then you can add this to your project. As soon as you add this to your project, whichever class you see here will be then accessible to you, and then all the methods within the class will be also accessible to you, and you can access it and you can use it. So basically, a team who is working towards creating these libraries, they're giving this library to you for free. It's an open source tool, and then you simply download that library, attach it into your project, and then start using them. Okay, that's as simple as that. All right. And then the third thing is Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid is something that we will be covering at the very end of our training session, which will let you test, or which will let you execute your test in parallel. So if you remember, I told you that in automation world, your biggest challenge is to provide the feedback of your test, of your application sooner to the developers. So the developers are building the code, and you need to make sure that you somehow provide the feedback to the developer as soon as possible. Okay, when I say as soon as possible, you need to execute your test cases super fast so that you can give the report to them that these are the test cases are failing and why it is failing, so on and so forth, so that they can fix it. The parallel execution is something that is supported by Selenium Grid. So these are the three flavors that you must be aware of. So WebDriver and the grid is what we will be covering in this training session. Moving on to the next one, which is how does Selenium work? This is very, very important architecture to understand, because once you understand this, you will be able to explain it to your interviewer. It's a very common question. They might ask you, tell me the architecture of Selenium Web Driver, and this should be, you should be able to explain it the way I'm doing it now. So you will be writing your test cases. Test cases that you will be writing, you will be obviously writing it with Java. Okay, you will be obviously writing it with Java. Once you're done with the test case, okay, and obviously you will be using the Selenium library for that. Okay, first you add the Selenium to your project, and then you are going to implement your test case. Once you're done implementing the test case, you're going to trigger the test case. You're going to execute the test case. You're going to execute the program. When you execute the program, basically in the program, you write something like this. You say Chrome driver equals new Chrome driver, right? That's what you write first. When you write this, Chrome driver equals new Chrome driver, as soon as you write this line and you execute this line, the way this library has been built, it will immediately initiate a server in your system. A server, what does a server do? A server waits for certain requests that it can serve. This is a very, very simple concept of web architecture. You have a browser. So this is my browser. I'm trying to say, for example, I'm trying to go to hostelworld.com. I hit enter. You see, I'm hitting enter. Let me clear out the drawings. Okay. I will also open up the dev console. All right. So go in the browser, go to the inspect. That'll open up this dev console, and inside this dev console, you would like to go to the section called as the network. So at this stage in the network, let me clear out whatever is there. And then as soon as I hit hostel world, you will see that multiple requests are being fired. Okay, you see there are some requests are already being fired because I'm moving my mouse through all these different places, and some actions are happening, which is why these requests are being fired. But if I do the hostelworld.com, if I hit this, you see there's so many requests are being fired. You see, they're all requests are being fired. And if you look at them closely, you see, this is the one that I called on, right? So hostelworld.com. As soon as I called on this request, it has gone to a server, which is having a domain name called hostelworld.com, and it is giving you the status code as 200, meaning it was able to fetch, it was able to reach this server, which is having a domain name, and it is giving the status code as 200, meaning the request was successful and the response was successful as well. So response, you go here, you can see it is showing entire HTML page for us. You see that? The HTML page got pulled, correct? There's so much of code which you don't have to know right now. Okay? You can see that it is a HTML page. You can see that. See? Blog, group bookings, booking guarantee, hostel awards. So these are some of the fields, you must be finding it somewhere. Let's look for the field. Say blog. See this? Blog, group bookings, booking guarantee, hostel awards. You see that? All of them are here. So the same page is being, it came to us from the response, in the response, right? When you hit the website URL. So that is, in a nutshell, this is what is happening. Okay, so now what I'm trying to say here is, hold on. Okay, so that is basically a server, right? So meaning, as soon as you are executing a program and your this line gets executed, Chrome driver equals new Chrome driver. As soon as you trigger this, a server gets started in your system. Some kind of a server, REST API server. The server is basically over here. It is not a web server. The server that is getting started, it is not going to open up a web page, but it is going to initiate a REST API server. What is REST API? We will have a detailed discussion about it when we come to the right place. But for now, you can just look into a very small definition, REST API. For example, REST API is an application programming interface, okay, that confirms the constraint of REST architectural style and allows for interaction with RESTful web services. REST stands for representational state transfer, okay? Representational state transfer, and it was created by a computer scientist called Roy Falding. Anyway, so basically you can consider this as a server, again, which is not a web server. It is just a server waiting for certain requests that it is capable of handling. Suppose this server is, this REST API is built to provide flight information, okay? Okay. But if you're trying to send a request to get car information, right? Obviously, it will not be able to give you the data, correct? Because this REST API is built. I'm giving you an example. A REST API, when you're building it for a specific purpose, okay? To provide some kind of an information, okay? So this REST API is supposed created to give you flight information. If you look for a car information, it will not give it to you. Simple as that. Similarly, this REST API that the Chrome driver equals new Chrome driver is starting, it is basically waiting to handle any WebDriver request. Any WebDriver request. For example, you have a button in the page. You have a button in the page and you want to perform a click on this button. When you try to click on this button, you will be using a method supplied by Selenium library, and the method is called .click. So I told you that you have attached a Selenium library to your project, okay? The Selenium library is giving you the access to the method called .click. When you call this method called .click, it is firing a request. It is firing a request to what? It is firing a request to the WebDriver REST API server, saying that I want to perform a click on a particular button which has certain locator. The locator is XPath, for example, and you're providing the XPath information as well. So you're basically providing that this is the XPath location where I want to perform a click. And the REST API server is waiting to hear that. As soon as it hears that information, it performs that operation in the browser. Now, depending on the browser, you will add drivers. Depending on the browser, you will add drivers. So you have a Chrome driver, you have a Firefox driver, you have an Edge driver. So you have to download these drivers. These are .exe files, which you have to add in your code. You have to add in your system, and then you have to refer to this exe file. So again, you're calling a method called .click. This .click method is built in such a way that it fires a specific query to the REST API server, which is started by the Webdriver object or the Chrome driver object. And then you pass on that information to the browser. And then the operation gets performed. And when the operation gets performed, the response of it will be sent back to the caller. And then from the WebDriver, it will be sent back to the test case. That's where you know that the test, that particular command was successfully executed. And also you have to understand something. When you are calling the method called .click, behind the scene, all the information of the .click event is sent using JSON wire protocol. So click is an event, right? Click is an event, This event needs to be performed in a button. So from HTML perspective, it doesn't matter whether it's a button or not, but it is basically a locator. So locator, XPath locator maybe, XPath locator. And you also have to send the information like in which browser you are trying to perform this operation. So browser. So when you are basically firing the method called .click, you're executing the method .click, then these informations are very important. It is a click event, where you want to perform the event, and what is the browser. What is the browser? Correct? These all information is sent to the server using JSON wire protocol. What is JSON wire protocol? What is JSON? JSON means a specific data format. So JSON ideally means JavaScript object notation. Correct? How does a JSON look like? There are thousands of examples. You can go into Google and look for JSON and then just say images. And you can see this is how a JSON is ideally looks like. Okay, you see a particular format. Don't bother about this format because we will go over this format in details when we talk about API automation. So here you can see the data is being created in a specific format, which is basically supporting key value pair. You see, it is a key and that's the value. It is a key and that's the value. All right. Let me open up a few more. Look at this, right? Order number and there is order number, date and then there is a date. tracking number, and then tracking number, right? The key value pair format, all right? So this is called a JSON format. So ideally, what did I say? I said, whatever the operation you're trying to perform, all those information is dynamically created, or dynamically created in JSON format and is sent to the REST API server. And then the REST API server will forward that information to the relevant exe file, depending on the browser. And then in the browser, the operation will happen, and then you get back the status code. This entire system is basically a Selenium Web Driver architecture. You must be explaining people, whoever will ask you, what is the JSON wire protocol, so on and so forth, whatever I just said, and then that will be enough. They exactly want to hear whatever I just said, right? A REST API server, JSON wire protocol, so on and so forth. Okay. Do you have any questions with respect to architecture? This architecture.
Yeah, Sovik, just a question on, I think it's up here, the business logic server. So if I could just get like a bit more information on what that is.
Business logic server is nothing to do with the Selenium architecture that I'm defining.
Okay, so
business logic server is something that is a part of your web application. You understand? So the point is that your application is basically built on multiple tiers. So you have a web server. This is from the web application perspective. Whatever I just explained right now, it is basically from the Selenium perspective or test case perspective. But when I'm saying business logic server, it is basically from your application perspective, meaning an application can have a web server or an app server, and app server. App server is nothing but the business logic server and the database. It's a multiple tiers, right? So web server basically contains all the web application information, meaning all the configuration of the website, then maybe some artifacts like some images, some files. Those things all goes inside the web server. Something that can be easily fetched web server, right? By the user. Okay, maybe some pictures, maybe library, some configuration files to make the application up and running. Those kind of things.
Is it web server or web services?
No, web server. Web server. Web
Okay.
services is different.
And web services is just APIs.
Exactly.
On the internet. Okay.
Exactly. And then you have business logics or app server. Okay, so as a part of the app server, you are actually implementing the business logic. For example, you have a site which is catering to hostels or hotels. So all the hotel logic, for example, you want to allow the user to book the hotel 1 month in advance. That is a code that your developers are actually writing. Okay, so those business logics are kept inside the app server. And then finally, you have the DB, the database, which actually holds the data for you. So web server, again, is basically holding some artifacts that user can quickly get. App server basically keeps the business logic, and then the database in which your data are stored. So including all those three different servers. It's a 3-tier architecture, you can say. Your web application is running. Is that clear?
Thank you for clarifying, Sovik. Thanks.
Now that we understand this, let's move on to the next part. Let's understand a jar file. I told you what is a jar file. Jar file is Java archive file. You can basically create, you can yourself create a project, a jar file. You see, you have Java class 3 that I added. And you can see in the Java class 3, I have test class package. Inside this, I have 3 different class files, correct? I can convert this project into a jar file. How can I do it? Very simple. I can create a jar file out of this project and then add this jar file as a library into Java class 2. Okay, let's see how can we do this. Export, right click on this, export, and then say you want to make it a jar file under Java jar file. Give it a name. The name was school registration. Let's give the name as school reg. Okay. Keep all of these as a default, however it is, and you want to put this file in desktop location and save. School reg. Okay, and then you say finish, and just say okay. You're done with that. So you create this jar file, and then in the class Java class 2, you can see I have a test school. Okay, and then there are a few things over here, no problem at all. I will simply add that jar file inside this project. How can I do it? Right click on this, properties, Java build path. Inside this, you can see libraries, and it's a library under class path. Say add external jars and add the jar that you're talking about. School reg is a jar. So you open and you added that, apply and close. That's done. Now, once you have done that, then you can simply go ahead and create a class and say test school reg. Okay, and say finish. In this main method, I want to basically trigger this class. How can I do it? So this class is named as school registration class. Inside it, there is a method called main method. So basically, I want to call this main method, which is under this class. All right. How can I do it? Very simple. I can just say school registration dot main. See that? And you can see, because it's a jar file, sorry, not here. Because it's a jar file that is added to my project, you can see that it is importing, it is saying that this class, yes, this class is added to the project, but this class is under a particular package called test class. You see, test class package is nowhere existing in this project. Nowhere existing in this project, but it is there as a part of the jar file, which is why it is importing it. And then I can go and I can just simply call this main method. How do I do that? Just simply run it. Run as Java application, and it will just ask me to do everything. P, right? Yeah, perfect. So the program is working fine.
So is it fair to say that the jar files inside the library that holds the the jar files holds a class, and inside that class it's just nothing but methods?
So jar file, okay. If you open the jar file, what do you see first? You see test class package, right? And if you open the test class package, you see registration.class, school registration.class, student.class. The difference between having a jar file and having an entire project is that this project is zipped or compiled, and whatever the entities inside that we had, which were .java file, is now compiled to become a .class file. They're all compiled version of these files and nothing more than that.
Gotcha.
And because they are all compiled version of these files, so obviously whatever the methods you have kept here will be accessible under this as well, right? It's the same file, this is the compiled version, which is why I am able to call the main method directly, because inside this class, there is a method called main, and I'm able to call it. I'm able to access it from this class, which is in a different project now. Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So that is the exact same strategy that I'll be using in order to set up my Selenium Web Driver. Exact same strategy. Meaning we'll go to selenium.dev. And go to downloads and go to, okay, it is saying 4.0. Yeah, we can use this, no problem at all. Yes, 4.0. Okay. Actually, I will put this in my location. Hold on. C drive dev work. Okay. I was using this one earlier, but we can use now. This is a stable version, looks like, so we'll use this. This is added, and then I will simply add this to my project. How do I do that? I go to my Java class 3 properties, class path, add external jars, downloads, not downloads, sorry, C drive, dev work, drivers, 704, open, right? Apply and close, it's added. As soon as it's added, you can see in the reference libraries, you see Selenium 4, and if you open this up, in this case, there are thousands of packages, obviously. The team has worked on, and there are thousands of packages to work with, and each and every packages are having thousands of class files, right? .class files, that's all. Now, once you have everything here, then you can simply start using it in your project, as simple as that, correct? Now, let's see something else. Okay. Installing Selenium jar file and configuring it's done. So that's pretty much about it. Let's move on to the next part. Okay. Understanding HTML and basic structure, WebDriver. Okay. Okay. DevTools, HTML attributes, inspecting elements. All right. What we will do is we'll first and foremost try to create a simple test Selenium. Okay. The first thing that we want to do is just a simple project called Selenium test. The main method. That's it. Close others. Okay. Now here I want to simply go ahead and initialize my Chrome driver. Chrome driver equals new Chrome driver. You see, it is asking me to import the Chrome driver. So I imported the Chrome driver, which is under this package. You see, whatever the names in the lowercase, they are all the packages. So org, openqa, selenium.chrome. Okay, it means org is a main package. Inside that, there is an OpenQA package. Inside that, there is a Selenium package. And finally, you have Chrome package. Okay, these dots are basically saying that these packages are under the other one. And then finally, you have a class called Chrome driver class. So you have it here, and then you say driver.get. And then you pass on the URL called https hostelworld.com, something like this. And then you can try to trigger the execution. When you trigger the execution, you will obviously get an error saying the path to the driver executable must be set with a property named as webdriver.chrome.driver. Okay, how do you set that? Very simple. Just above this line, just say system dot set property and then here, and then you provide the location of your exe file. Correct? What is the exe file location? You go and say what's the location of the exe file? C drive, dev work, drivers, Chrome driver, and that's it. Correct? So you can pass it on here and just say and then just give it a try. And this should trigger your Chrome driver and also opens up the hostel world. Simple stuff. For now, that's all with the Selenium introduction. Let's move on to the next part of it. We will look at it over and over again. How did you get it? Okay, so let's try to understand what is the HTML structure. HTML is basically a structural document, and it follows parent-child relationship. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And if you open any HTML page, you will see a structure something like this. HTML body, and then there are multiple tags, so on and so forth. So HTML basically has a tree-like structure, you can see. HTML, and then there is a head section, and then there's a body section. You can go to any page, look at it as HTML, inspect, and you can see HTML, it has a head section, it has a body section. Okay, always. That's how it is built. So now that you have it here, and in the head, there are no component which you can actually interact with. In the head, you basically keep the information about the website, like the title, and then the location of the CSS file, the JavaScript file. And then there's a body section, which has the actual component that you can interact with. In the body section, you can keep the buttons, the images, the headers, the H1 tags, the spans, the text, the paragraphs. Everything goes inside the body. And the head, you have some information which cannot be seen, right? You can look into it. In the head, you have things like title and then meta tags. Nothing that we can really interact with. However, in the don't consider this as any like a link. It's not a link. It's not the same link. If you want to really find a link that you can click on, they are all inside the body tag, right? Inside the body tag, you can find a link, which is, for example, this is a link. No, this is a button. Maybe at the bottom. Yeah, that's a link, right? You can see links are all have the tag as A. A means anchor. All right. This is a very basic HTML understanding. You don't have to be an HTML expert at this stage. You will get there slowly. So just follow my lead. There are a few tags which will make the structure of the page. And then in the page, you add CSS and JavaScript to make that page active and look beautiful, right? So there are three components of a website that you must be understanding. Number one is your HTML. Number two is CSS. Number three is JS, JavaScript. HTML is basically giving you the structure of the page. You just define that you want to have a button, you want to have a link, you want to have a paragraph, you want to have a division, you want to have a table. Division means nothing but a container inside which you can keep multiple components. That's a division, right? So it gives you a structure. CSS makes your site look beautiful. So makes the site, okay, so just look and feel. Like the colors and everything. And JS basically makes the site active. When I say make the site active, for example, when you hit the login button, it makes you log in to the site. So JavaScript is actually doing that job. When you hit on the button, something is happening. You're calling multiple web services that is authenticating you and getting you access to that other side. The entire operation is done by JavaScript. Multiple different methods are being called, and that is basically performing all the authentication and everything, and then letting you go into the site. That's JavaScript. Okay. What else do you want to see? Okay, that's pretty much about the HTML part. Let's move on. Understanding the browser dev tools. Okay, there are multiple different dev tools that we will be looking for. We will be using. The primary one that we will be using always is our Elements tab. So to access the dev tool, you just go and hit right click on the website and say inspect. When you do that, you have the section coming up, and then here you say a pointer. When you click on the pointer, you are able to inspect, you are able to understand more about these components that you are seeing. For example, there is a button called accept all. When you click on it, you want to know the story behind this button. So you can go and just inspect it, and you can see that this is the button. Button is having the tag called button. Okay, so this entire thing is HTML. Okay, let me make it understandable for you. This entire thing is an HTML component. All right, so you see HTMLs are having tags, multiple tags. So this is the tag called button. That's a tag. Right, this tag. And then it has an attribute. Correct? What is the attribute? Attribute is ID. Is the attribute, and the attribute is having a value. Okay, and then there's also another attribute called type. The type is button, and then another attribute called class, and class is so on and so forth. This is not a Java class. This is a CSS class, right? And then there is a tab index, and this is a text that you see here for the button. You see the text, and then there's a, I don't know how did they put this image over here. I don't think it's an image. I think it's a GIF. Yes, a GIF, I believe. And then that's the end of the button. You see, it's an opening tag and a closing tag. That's how every HTML component is defined. Whether it's a link, whether it's a anchor, whether it's a div, everything that is open, it has to be closed. As simple as that. Correct? So that's how it is built. We will be using we will be getting the experts in this elements tab. Okay, we'll be getting the experts in this elements tab. Now that we have this over here, there are other tabs that we will be looking at. One is called network tab. I showed you a minute back. It will track whichever calls you are making. For example, I click on accept all, and you see there was some calls that was made. What is a call made? You see, banner message is a call that is made. Look at this. This call was made to this server called as consent.trustarc.com banner message, and this consent.trustarc.com, it is not a part of hostelworld.com. You can easily understand that because the domain is different. Actually, let me show you something. I'll go to the site directly. Let's see what is it. Okay, so this site is actually not a site that you can access. It is a web services. This web service basically let you, I mean, if you want to work with this particular company, let me Google them. Let me Google them and figure this out. If I'm a business owner and if I want to work with this company, how can I do that, right? You see, Cookie Consent Manager, it's a web services. TrustArc, that's the company name, right? And these guys have implemented this web services. And this web services is used by Hostel World. How cool is that, right? And this guy is doing what? These guys are doing what? Let's see, what do they do? I don't know. Privacy platform, privacy central, research on demand, consumer trust. All right. About us, why, whatever. You can easily understand. This is a company that will let you simply accept or access the web services that they have built. And this web service is being simply used by hostelworld.com. By doing that, Hostelworld is not really bothered about this cookies part, right? They're not implementing that cookie template. Okay, that cookie handling is done by a third-party web services, right? And they are just simply paying them a bill, right? And that's how it is working. It's very simple to understand if you think about it. Okay, everything is not built by the company from scratch. They buy different types of web services which are available, and they simply use them, right? So that's how it happens. Anyway, so this is the network call I was talking about. So this network tab will be very much required when we actually deal with web services testing. Okay, we'll come back to it again. Please look into my video that I have said, and I have spoken about different other tabs. I don't want to go over it again. Let's move on to the next part. So different tabs and DevTools. Yeah, okay. Understanding HTML tags. As I said, there are multiple different HTML tags that we will be looking at, and we will be looking at them when we are understanding locator strategies. Okay, so you open up any website and try to inspect anything, a button, a text box, a link, an image, and you will find the tags. I told you how to read them. So anchor is a tag for link, okay, and then input is a tag for a text box, and then select is a tag for the list elements, okay, and then there are a few more. There are divs, there are paragraphs, there are spans, right? There are tables, there are iframes, okay. But the bottom line is every tag has its own requirement to perform, job to perform, and each and every tag is having certain attributes that are built for them. For example, anchor is a tag for a link, okay, for a link. Now, anchor tag must be having an attribute called as href equals Amazon.com, right? For example, ahref equals https Amazon.com. So href is basically the hyperlink, meaning when you hit the link, okay, so maybe you have the name of the link is click me, okay, and you just complete that here, correct? When you hit click me, that must redirect you to Amazon.com. That information is being added here under href attribute, okay? Then there is not only one attribute, a tag can have multiple attributes. Why I'm showing this to you? Because you actually have to use the combination of the tag and the attributes to find this tag uniquely in the page. Your motive is to find the component uniquely in the page and then perform an action on top of it. Do you understand? So that's how it should be done. All right. What else we can do? Don't worry if you are not understanding this much. It's okay. I'm just giving you pointers. When we start looking into XPath, the locator strategies, it will be playing with it like every day. It'll be your bread and butter. All these tags will be your bread and butter every day. So don't worry about it if you have any doubts and questions in mind. Okay, understanding HTML attribute, I told you what it is. Finding an element, okay, finding an element is simple. For example, in my website right now, I'm coming to the hostelworld.com. In the hostelworld.com, I want to click on Let's Go button, okay? So the button is having, obviously the tag is button, and it is having an ID called a search button, and then the text is let's go, right? So I can find this button, okay? ID is search button, so I can just find this button. How can I find the button? I can find the button with a method which is coming out of the Webdriver. So you just say driver. Driver is a Chrome driver component, a Chrome driver object. So driver dot find element, okay? And then say by.id, and then you pass on this, and then say .click. All right, so I will go through the entire logic of how we are able to write this command in one line. If you look into it, there are basically multiple commands chained up together. And how is this possible? How is this possible? We can go through this in details next week. I think I have mentioned this in the video as well, but if not, don't worry. I will go through this entire chain and I will show you how I am able to write this whole command in one line. There are basically multiple commands stitched together in a line, but I'll show you. Anyway, this code will work if I run it. You're trying to find an element. You're using an ID attribute. Why? Because this element that you're trying to work with is having the attribute called as search button. I mean, the attribute ID called as search button. And you're using that same value to perform the click. So if I go and run this, you will see that I can perform that let's go. As soon as you hit the let's go, you can see it is giving me that error. I don't know if you noticed it, but it gave me an error. See, to view price availability, please enter a location. That's a tooltip that was given to me. Okay, it's not an error, but just a suggestion. So that's how things are working. You can just find an element and perform a click. So basically now you can relate that whatever I was talking in terms of like JSON wire protocol. This is a test case written in Java. You're performing a dot click. When you're performing a click, you are basically sending multiple information to the server using JSON wire protocol. You're sending the locator, you're sending what kind of operation is to be performed and what browser that operation is to be performed. And then the operation is being performed.
So you see this search button, the locator. So I notice here that you haven't declared the XPath. How come it's working?
It is not an XPath I'm using here. There are multiple different types of locator strategies we have to use. I'm using ID here. I'm not using XPath here.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, there are multiple types of locator strategies. I'm using ID here, but in general, we should be using XPath only. And I'll talk about that, why I need XPath. Why am I preferring XPath over other locators?
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk about that in future. Let's see what else we have for today. Inspecting element, I showed you what to do. You can just right click on the element and try to hover on top of it. It should take you to that element. And that's pretty much about it that I wanted to cover up for today and for this week. And next week, I want to enable you these things. These are more on Java and a little bit on the locator strategies. So that's where you will be. So I'm going to enable you for week number 3 and get started from tomorrow itself so that you can.
I think it's week number 4.
Week number 4?
Yeah, I think so.
Did I not cover? Did I cover these?
No, not yet.
No, I mean in the video. Are you able to see them?
Oh yeah, in the video you've seen them, but we haven't enabled week 4. So you've enabled week 3, but not week 4.
So did you guys get through the week 3? I mean, did you guys learn the week 3 or how it is?
I'm almost there.
I still need to watch one video from week 3 and to do the exercises for that particular video.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So I believe that in that case, do you want me to enable, because I didn't talk about week 3 in today's class. Do you want me to give you a gap and come back to you next week in the week 3 session, or you want me to enable week 4?
For me, I've only been able to watch like the first video, not the next 2 videos.
Okay.
1 week.
I think we should take a little slow here because these are very important concepts and I wanted to be crystal clear about it. So let me not enable week 4 this week, and please go through them again. Let me come back to you next Friday and explain this topics to you so that you are totally clear, and then I will enable week 4. Okay.
Quick question, Savik. So the XPath, just so I'm clear, right? You use the XPath because it uniquely finds an element, right? Because is that why you use the XPath?
Yeah, and with the help of ID as well, you can find the element uniquely in the page. However, every component in the page will not have an ID.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So if you have an ID, feel free to use that, and it will give you the element uniquely in the page. However, 95% of the time, IDs won't be there, and that's where you use XPath.
Okay, because I was having a challenge with accessing your website and selecting the login button. That login button seems to be an issue for me, but I'll get to you off call about that.
Yeah, no problem at all. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's pretty much about it. Then I'm not enabling week number 4 because I want to really cover week number 3 and explain all of it to you. So let's take it slow and we will cover week number 3 in the next session. next Friday, and 29th. And then I'll enable week 4 here. Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for joining. See you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Sovik.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
I'll